Senate charges security agents on swift rescue of abducted Kankara school students.
Ajokuta Kaduna Kanu gas pipeline AKK project to mitigate energy deficit in Nigeria.
Nigeria records more than 74,000 COVID-19 cases as NDCC confirms over 700 new infections.
And on Good Morning Nigeria today, we shall discuss securing schools in Nigeria.
Now, recent incidents of invasion of schools and abduction of teachers and students across the country's educational institutions have become alarming. A head teacher with Olagua Primary School in Edo State, Mr. Paul Alu, was kidnapped on his way to work on the 1st of December this year. Fortunately, he was released 6 days later.
Well, unfortunately, that is not the case of Mrs. Gladys Bale and Mrs. Blessing Lufele, both teachers of Ohore Secondary School, Ephraim, in Delta State, kidnapped in their school premises by armed bandits on December 8, 2020, and are yet to be released. Both families, students, and the entire school community have been destabilized by the incident.
Well, Kieran, those are just some of the cases that haven't made the headlines, as it were. Well, the recent incident at Government Science Secondary School in Kankara, that's in Katsina State, is now on record as one of the worst attacks on secondary schools. And the latest reports say that 17 of the 333 abducted students have escaped from the hands of their abductors.
While we applaud the escape of the 17 abducted boys of the Government Science Secondary School, Kankara, these incidences are sad reminders of events in Chibok and Dapchi, and about 100 of those girls are still missing to date.
Now, following President Buhari's directive, the Inspector General of Police, Mohammed Adamu, has deployed more assets to support the ongoing search and rescue operations in and around Katsina State, while ordering the immediate review, reinforcement, and strengthening of security arrangements around educational institutions in the country. And this, of course, will be in line with the safe school policy of the administration.
And Nigeria, being one of the 106 countries globally to sign the Safe School Declaration, is expected to count for something. The international political agreement is to build upon the development of a global community dedicated to protecting education, even in armed conflict. And Nigeria committed to implementing the Safe School guidelines during a Federal Executive Council meeting on the 20th of March 2019.
The Safe School Declaration states that every boy and girl has the right to education without fear of violence or attack, that every teacher, professor, and school administrator should be able to teach and research in conditions of safety, security, and dignity, and that every school should be a protected space for students to learn and fulfill their potential even during war.
Now, the Nigerian Union of Teachers is appealing for adequate protection for students, pupils, teachers, and the school communities to ensure that educational activities are not hampered by enemies of the nation's educational system, using schools as soft targets. One question now is, how best can Nigeria secure her educational institutions, students, and teachers? Is there a law or government policy to support and guide the implementation of of the Safe School Declaration policy in Nigeria. We shall have answers to these issues and others likely to come up on Good Morning Nigeria this Wednesday morning. My name is Kirian Umayo.
And I'm Kingsley Osadolo. I joined my colleague Kirian to also welcome you to the program. Kirian, a moment ago while we were kicking off our conversation, we did mention some of the incidents of abduction of students and pupils. Ahmadu Bello University Zaria was also attacked recently, and staff were abducted from the institution. And Ahmadu Bello, of course, is in Zaria, and that's in Kaduna State. So it's a worrisome development that we are seeing, and that's why we are focusing on that topic today.
And one wonders why targeting schools. Is there any underlying issues concerning those persons that have been abducted, or has that got to do with ordinary criminality? Because the target is the question. Who are the targets? Who are the persons that are being targeted in the schools? Is it just the entire school, or individuals who may have other issues with persons, unknown persons? What attracts people, criminals, to schools? It's a very big question.
I'm sure our guest will elaborate more on this, but clearly, I mean, from the ideology of Boko Haram in the first instance, which means Western education is sin, which was why we saw what happened at Chibok. And even before Chibok, there had been a number of incidents in and around other institutions. Bunu Yadi, if you recall, some 69 students in the boarding house were either murdered or burnt to death. The Polytechnic at Mubi had also been attacked. So these are vulnerable locations. Because students are not supposed to bear arms. They are in search of knowledge and sitting in their classrooms or in their dormitories or in their libraries. And all of a sudden, the criminal elements, bandits, or insurgents, as it very well be, then come, storm the schools, and then take them away. It's a pretty sad development, and something that we have to worry about, because a number of schools have been closed now in some states.
Exactly. And the involvement of bandits in this very saga is worrisome as well, because we've been worried about Boko Haram and a few individuals. Now we're talking about bandits as well.
And professional kidnappers, or kidnappers for ransom. All right, so it's Good Morning Nigeria. We are live on the network service of the Nigerian Television Authority. We also have a second topic for our conversation segment, and that is on population census, as the National Population Commission commences its nationwide enumeration area demarcation exercise. It's not commences, it actually continues, because they've undertaken that a couple of years ago. And in the course of the program, of course, we'll have our regular companion segments, and that will include newspaper review. For now, let's join Comfort Amodu for the highlights of the morning news. Good morning, Comfort.
Good morning, and good morning, Nigerians. Welcome to the morning news. 17 out of the missing 333 abducted students of the government science secondary school Kankara have escaped from the hands of their abductors. This was confirmed by the Director General, Media to Katsina State Governor Abdul Labaran Malumfashi in a telephone interview with our correspondent.
In fact, it started giving me an impression that inshallah, this our people will be great, inshallah.
And Senate has condemned the recent abduction of some students from the government science secondary school Kankara, Katsina State, and called for an expeditious rescue mission by security agencies.
If no immediate action is taken to rescue Kankara school boys, their fate may be sealed in the hands of terrorists. Yesterday, armed bandits were roaming the street of Tagina, and Beji is just about 20 kilometers to Mina.
How can we seek for help outside? Let us come up open and seek for help.
The situation has come to a head, and I believe that when situations reach this level, this crescendo, the solution is nearby.
Meanwhile, the House of Representatives has also called on the federal government to expedite action towards ensuring the safe return of all abducted school children, the recent of which are students of Government Science Secondary School Kankara in Katsina State. The issue came under the matters of urgent public importance during plenary Tuesday.
Violation of humanity and basic decency. Therefore, the federal government must put a stop to senseless attacks on the hopes and dreams of a generation of children.
These are very important, salient points. And otherwise, commendable, very good, ambitious program by Mr. President. We should not allow it to be tainted in.
Vice President Yemi Osinbajo received a United Kingdom delegation on trade, which is in the country, to discuss Brexit, among other issues. The discussions around improving relations between Nigeria and the United Kingdom across different sectors, especially in the post-Brexit era, as the Vice President noted, will make a difference for both countries. As the Vice President rather observed, the COVID-19 pandemic era offers opportunity for Nigeria and the UK to adopt innovative ways of addressing challenges facing both countries, noting that education, capacity building in the judiciary sector, among others, are important areas of interest to Nigeria. The leader of the Prime Minister's trade envoy to Nigeria, Ms. Helen Grant, said the visit to Nigeria was a deliberate effort by the United Kingdom government to deepen conversations with friendly countries across different sectors ahead of Brexit. She said aside trade, both countries can work harder to strengthen ties in agriculture, health, technology, judiciary and other sectors, expressing her country's interest in ensuring that Nigeria records improvements. The Jakarta-Kaduna-Kano gas pipeline project has been described as a revolution that will mitigate energy deficit in Nigeria. Minister of Finance, Budget and National Planning Zainab Ahmed says the project is already impacting on communities among its corridors through job creation, with more still in the pipeline. Zainab Ahmed says government is committed to its timely completion as she joined Minister of State Petroleum Resources Timipri Silva and GMD of NNPC Mele Kyari to assess the progress of work on the project in Kaduna. They are optimistic that the project will be completed on schedule despite COVID-19 pandemic. Our project is expected to be delivered in 24 months. And the Nigerian Police Force is expanding facilities at the newly established Police Basic Secondary School, Abuja, to enable children and wards of police personnel access basic and qualitative education.
The initiative is also part of the broad welfare program for personnel of the force. Aside this, we have invested massively in the renovation, modernization, the equipment, and expansion of our existing police colleges and schools across the country.
The Nigerian Center for Disease Control and CDC has announced 758 new cases of COVID-19 in Nigeria, bringing the total number of confirmed cases to 74,132. These 758 new infections were recorded in 18 states, plus the FCT, which confirmed 305 cases. Lagos has 152, Kaduna 103, Bauchi 44, Gombe 35, Plateau 31, Rivers 17, Sokoto 15, Kwara 13, Kano 9, Ebonyi 8, Ogun and Osun have 5 each. Oyo, Edo and Anambra recorded 4 cases each. Bayelsa 2, while Ekiti and Taraba have 1 new case each. Lagos tops the case per state lists with 25,157 cases, followed by the FCT with 8,729 cases, and Kaduna is next with 4,044 cases, while 848,194 samples have been tested so far. Some 6,438 cases are currently active, while 66,494 patients have been discharged, with 1,200 deaths on record. And that concludes the morning news highlight. Good Morning Nigeria on securing schools in Nigeria will continue immediately after this break with Kingsley and Kieran. Good morning.
And you are watching Good Morning Nigeria. It's now time for our newspaper review segment.
Bayo Toyobi, would like to welcome you to this edition of Newspaper Review.
I want to say present, sir. Good morning. Good morning.
Bayo, yeah.
Good morning. Good morning.
Bayo, you should say present audience.
All right, we have I have the Nation newspaper here. Above the nameplate of the Nation, ex-senators, ex-reps press Tinubu to run for president. That's on page 5. Now, LCCI blames inflation rise on Forex and others. So, page 25. I gave Sanusi the Jonathan medicine, says Ganduje. Ganduje is the governor of Kano State. That story is on page 5. 17 pupils return from forest as ACF knocks federal government. With the rider, parents seek safe return of boys. Governor raises hope of rescue. Now, we have other headlines here. Chief Justice treating COVID-19 in UAE. World Bank's IMF's loans to Nigeria in 2020 hit $11.465 billion. That will be all, obviously.
All right, we also take a look at the front page of the Daily Trust newspaper. Daily Trust row over CJN's health status. That's page 8. And federal government names non-headquarters after late Wada Meda. That's also on page 8. Rumor of mass defection persists as Kano Assembly gets new leaders. Katsina abduction, that's the kicker. Shekau may ask for prisoner swap and ransom. That's according to experts with 4 riders. Don't let the boys be turned to terrorists. Mixed reactions in Kankara, 10 schools closed in Zamfara. Federal government and military silent on Boko Haram claim. Education under siege, that's attributed to Amnesty, Arawa Consultative Forum and House of Reps. Photographs from the school premises. Parents anxiously awaiting news about their children and wards. That's see a woman whose son was adopted, sobbing there inside the school premises, while soldiers comb the surroundings of the school. My biggest agony in life, woman whose son and grandson were abducted. Federal government orders telcos to get customers' needs in 2 weeks. Why I sacked Sanusi as Emir of Kano, it's according to Ganduje. And Kogi swears in women as vice chair in 21 local government areas. Bayo.
Thank you, Kingsley. Let's start with the abducted GSS Kankara students. A GS2 student of the school who escaped Saturday morning described how he escaped. He said that when we were abducted, I kept on saying Allahu Akbar, which means Allah is great. The bandits divided us into batches. I cannot give exact figure of the number of us, but it was one of the bandits that God used to ensure my escape. He showed me an escape route early Saturday morning, and that is how I returned home. Meanwhile, this day reports that the Senate has summoned the defense minister and security chiefs over the abduction of GSS Kankara students. Military sources also say we are focused on the rescue of the children. Having established their location, the issue of collateral damage is being looked into. The safety of the children is paramount. On claims by Boko Haram that they are responsible for it, the military dismissed that as propaganda. Meanwhile, Zamfara State Commissioner for Education, Dr. Ibrahim Abdullahi, has asked all boarding schools in the state to close. They are to remain closed until security is improved. He said, we will not want what happened in Katsina to happen in Zamfara. All principals have been directed to ensure immediate closure. In Kano, the special advisor to the governor of media, Salihu Tanko Yakasai, says that security measures have been taken to secure schools, and so apparently they are not closing. Across the state to Kaduna, Kaduna State has directed all public and private schools to conclude all arrangements and close by 16th of December. The Commissioner of Education, Shehu Makarafi, says this is a measure taken to curb the spread of COVID-19 due to what he described as second wave. He says the rising cases of COVID-19 in Kaduna shows a replica of what happened in the state between April and June. The State Ministry of Health confirms that there is a new wave, and this is affecting people between the age bracket of 10 to 35 years, and that is the major population of the education sector. Meanwhile, physical classes at universities and other higher institutions will not be held during the period of closure. Schools are to provide online resource for our lessons. Learners of basic, post-basic secondary school are to continue learning at home from the state television, radio, e-learning programs. Talking about COVID-19 now, the number of cases has shot up to 758 yesterday, and this has meant that FCT had as many as 305 cases, followed by Lagos 152. Kaduna had 103, and so you can see the anxiety in Kaduna. Confirmed cases so far are 74,132. We have 66,494 of our competitors have been discharged. Yesterday we lost 3 Nigerians, bringing the total that have died to 1,200. Those in treatment now are 6,538. Only about a week ago we had about 3,000 in treatment across the country, and that is why the NCDC has directed that they should open up the centers again, because the numbers are increasing. Now, this disputation about the status of the Chief Justice of Nigeria, Justice Ibrahim Solawa gave an indication that the Chief Justice of Nigeria is undergoing treatment in the United Arab Emirates. However, the Director of Information of the Supreme Court, Dr. Festus Akande, says there is no medical report to the claim that the CGN is suffering from COVID-19. It may be recalled that during the induction of 72 senior advocates of Nigeria, it was Justice Olabode Rosevivor who stood in for the Chief Justice of the Federation.
Well, I'm just wondering, I've read the accounts in the media earlier speculating that the CJN was probably indisposed, and that's why he was unavailable at the swearing in of the new Sikh that took place on Monday. Now, the rebuttal issued by Festus Akande, who is Director of Press and Information in the Supreme Court, unfortunately doesn't make any clarification. It's just a rebuttal. It's denying that, or rather debunking the earlier reports. And he says, look, there's no medical evaluation that is out there in the public domain. What information do you have? Where is the Chief Justice of Nigeria? He hasn't said anything. If the Chief Justice was absent at a major function, it's for you to provide explanation. If he has some other engagements, fine, he has some other engagements. Where is it? The Chief Justice of Nigeria is an important citizen of this country. Yes. If you list the order of precedence, you will know where he stands. Yes. He is the head of a major arm of the, if there are 3 arms of government, he's the head of an arm of government. And even if it is COVID-19 or whatever the ailment is, it's not COVID-19 is not a social disease. A number of governors have gone into self-isolation. As we speak, the governor of Lagos State has tested positive. The governor of Bauchi tested positive. Kaduna tested positive. Oyo tested positive. Is this something to be ashamed of? Assuming it is COVID-19. But the point is, what information can you glean from the rebuttal issued by the Director of Press and Information at the Supreme Court? I'm afraid it's nothing.
Other than the fact that he said there's no medical report to say that this is.
So what is it?
But this report appears to be detailed, and of course credited to someone, and he has to say that he went to UAE for treatment of COVID-19. But that might also raise other issues with respect to the fact that treatment of COVID-19, is there any country that has the most authentic treatment for COVID-19? The answer is no, because if it appears to be so, why is it that many more are dying in America and other European countries where we have a better medical facility, and of course the personnel as well? So going to treat COVID-19 at UAE may not make sense at all, because the Nigerians have been surviving COVID-19 more than patients in those countries.
The other story is Nigerians now have between now and 31st December to submit their national identification number NIN to telephone subscribers or have their lines blocked. This is part of the decision reached by the Minister of Communication and Digital Economy and stakeholders. As at last count from the records of the NCC, there are 285 million connected lines, and those that are active are 198,961,361. So we have 12 working days within the 14 days left to the end of the 31st December. 12 working days for 198 million Nigerians who are subscribers to submit their national identification number.
These are sometimes the unrealistic deadlines that we set for ourselves, or we set to actualize certain goals or policy directives. Yes, it is important for you to have a better identification of persons who have SIMs, and therefore let's register telephone lines. But how can you achieve that in 1 month? Is it every Nigerian
in 12
who has
days?
I'm just saying, every Nigerian that has a national identification number? Have they confirmed from the NIMSI how many Nigerians have been issued NIN? If you recall, this was the same issue we were having earlier in the year when JAMB was insisting on the use of NIN for participation in their exams.
And eventually they had to drop it because it was obvious.
So in 12 days now, and this is a holiday period, you are saying everybody rush. Can this not be spaced out? Is there any word that is looming that if you don't have your NIN registered or your NIN matched against your name, your life will be cut off, and then those who don't have those details will now be deemed to be saboteurs or potential enemies of state? These deadlines are just unrealistic.
Again, there's this initiative to consolidate data.
Precisely.
You go to NIM, you register. You go for driver's license, you register. You go for telephone, you register. There should be a system whereby all these data are consolidated. And so if you have already registered under NIM and you have a telephone number, obviously your national identification number should be available.
It should be accessible.
Because a good number of Nigerians don't have NIM number. Majority, as a matter of fact, they don't have it.
Kirian, let's look at it. We keep talking about access to communication lines. Yes. There are persons today who are not lettered, but who just have a telephone line for purposes of receiving or making calls to their loved ones. Those ones don't have NIN. So what will happen to them when this deadline expires?
They will
and there are millions.
There are millions. I don't think that's a very smart one. It's not smart, in the sense that it is only when
the House of Rep also has given indication that this special work scheme, you remember the 1,000 special public works in the 774 local government area, the House of Representatives has ordered that it should be suspended. And secondly, they have also advised the Federal Ministry of Finance not to release any funds for it. They have also directed that the Director General of the NDE, who was removed, should be reinstated. Again, it's the tussle between the 52 billion that the National Assembly approved for the project, and it's a special project that is supposed to be supervised by the Minister of State. At the execution level now, the National Assembly is saying it should be suspended.
Well, that's a running story. It's been dogged by controversy. Actually, from the very beginning. Let's see how it plays out.
But why is it that when such programs come on board, some complex issues will just come up and stall a beautiful idea? I mean, we're in a country, we're running democracy for crying out loud, and we have persons who are responsible, who are occupying positions of authority in this country. When a good program of this nature comes up, why is that at a point in time, especially at the implementation level, it installs? It beats my imagination and many others as well, that such things could just be toyed with like that by people in the upper echelon of society. This is meant for Nigerians who are relatively poor, right? And at this point, it is stalled for reasons that nobody can explain.
Kira, we've touched on this from time to time. I'm sure there will be an opportunity for us to return to the subject matter. Bayo,
thank you.
I appreciate you being around. See you tomorrow. It's Good Morning Nigeria. You're watching Good Morning Nigeria, reaching you on the network service of the Nigerian Television Authority. Our conversation, first, of course, is on how to better secure schools in the country on the heels of recent abductions of students from their schools. We have three guests with us to discuss this. First, let's welcome Joshak Habila, who is a retired Deputy Inspector General of Police. DIG Habila, pleasure to have you with us on the program today.
Thank you for having me.
Okay. And also joining this conversation, two other regular guests on Good Morning Nigeria on security issues. From Lagos, we've been joined by Dr. Ona Ehomo, who is President Association of Industrial Security and Safety Operators of Nigeria. Dr. Ehomo, delighted to have you with us this morning.
Thank you very much. Good morning, sir.
And Kabiru Adamu, a security expert, is joining the discussion via Zoom. Thank you, Kabiru, for joining us this morning for the first conversation on the program.
Thank you, Kiran. Good morning, Nigeria.
All right, gentlemen, let's begin by having your take on the latest incidents of abduction of school students and the school premises. 2014, we had Chibok. 2018, sometime in February, that's almost 3 years now, we had Dapchi. And now, perhaps the largest in terms of numbers, even though there are still speculations as to the exact census of those who are not been accounted for. We're having Kankara, some accounts say about 300 of them. What is your impression as to what's happening? DIG Joshua Kabila.
Thank you. It's not a surprise to have that kind of incident at that axis because Katsina, Zamfara, and Kaduna has had a lot of bandits activities in that thick forest that spread across these three states. And so that incident that happened wouldn't be a surprise. Rather, it's a wake-up call for Nigerians to ensure that something better is done to prevent or to nip in the bud when it is happening. I think that is exactly what we should be thinking of.
When you say it is not a surprise, so the presumption therefore will be it probably was expected or that it might happen, it could happen. And if that is the presumption that we can make in this respect, why then would it be that the security agents or agencies were caught flat-footed?
Yes, I am saying it is not a big surprise because activities of bandits in Kaduna, part of Kaduna, Zamfara, and Katsina have been quite a while. And there are a lot of attempts, particularly in Katsina, where the governor also have had issues of letting a lot of them coming up to surrender their arms and also pledge loyalty and also undertake the fact that they will not go back to such places, and they were instituted into the system. They were brought in and then planted into the system and accepted. And so you could see that it is true that there are a lot of bandits around there. But this one of the Kankara, abducting these students is quite a new kind of activities by these bandits, and we just have to ensure that there are solutions to it, and there are a lot of ways we can checkmate that kind of incident.
All right, thank you. Let's turn to Ona Ehomo, President of Association of Industrial Security and Safety Operations of Nigeria. Give us a sense of how you feel with this incident, given the fact that Kingsley just read out a number of times the incident has happened, and the latest, of course, which is the most striking, just took place sometime last week. So how do you react to this?
Thank you very much, Mr. Kieran. I think I just follow up from what DIG Habila was saying, that it's not a surprise. Yes, what he means by that, let's put it in security parlance, is that that vulnerability was in the public domain. We knew the intentions of the bad guys. We knew that they had the capability. Intention, that means what are the threats against targets, like in this case schools. They had the capability, they could do it, they had the weapons, they had the machines to ride around. And what is their purpose? They want to collect ransom money. And so everything is out there already. Now all that needed to happen was for some responsible party to give the direction or to take action that will prevent this kind of thing that happened. For example, why is it that we don't have, or why is it that we couldn't anticipate this event? Yes, it's not a surprise. So we weren't taken unawares. Why is it that we couldn't anticipate that the towns and villages are drying up of targets to be seized? And so they look for new targets to seize. Now they have picked on schools. And certainly, of course, you've now even added the Shekau message, where it's not confirmed yet. But if Shekau is in that mix, then that even throws in a whole... throws in a new dimension to this problem, meaning that BH is now operational not only in the northeast, but they're also operational in the northwest, and that's a very toxic mix right there.
Okay, Dr. Ekomo, thanks a lot for your opening salvo. Well, let's also get the opening comment of Dr. Kabiru Adamu.
Thank you, Kingsley. So just to put all of this in context, the records at my disposal shows that 1,400 schools have so far been destroyed. That's since 2014, and that out of this, about 1,300 casualties for teachers and students. So with these statistics, it's very clear, and I agree with my co-discussants, that this could have been anticipated, and that means, of course, steps should have been taken to prevent the Kankara incident. That's not to say government has not done anything in this regard. As far back as 2014, the Safe School Initiative was signed into by Nigeria immediately after the World Economic Forum, and the former Prime Minister of the UK, Gordon Brown, spearheaded that move, and he was able to get several countries to donate at that time about $10 million for the takeoff fund of that Safe School Initiative, which then was meant to target 500 schools. Now, move on to 2019, when the Safe School Declaration was also signed into by the Nigerian government, and Nigeria was one of the first of 37 countries to sign into that declaration with three objectives. Number one, protect schools. Number two, protect communities within those schools, and then number three, vulnerable persons within those schools. So for instance, girls that could be a target of gender-based violence would also be protected. But the challenge has been how to translate that declaration into meaningful objectives. In other words, the policy statement as well as the law that would back that declaration have not yet been passed by the National Assembly. So just like my co-discussant mentioned, the statistics tells us clearly that schools are vulnerable, and unfortunately we did not take enough steps to protect those schools. Perhaps in the course of the discussion we can talk about how these schools are impacted by violence. When, for instance, in Maiduguri, schools are being occupied either by the military or some of the non-state actors, and so that means students are unable to attend those schools. So this issue has different ramifications, and I'm hoping that we'll discuss some of it in the course of our conversation.
Yes, different ramifications, and that is very true. Let's return to the studio here. Josh Kabila, as a matter of fact, this has become a phenomenon in this country, based on the fact that now we're not just talking about Boko Haram, we're not talking about bandits who now have developed the capacity to invade the school and, of course, abduct as many as 300 students. Now, in the realm of security, what would be the best approach to this? Nigeria having been a signatory to the Safe School, the signatory to the Safe School program, which is the global program. What should be the best approach to protecting, students, especially those who are in boarding schools? And the school in question, actually, if you look at the location of that school, you will know that it is highly vulnerable because it's totally out of somewhere in the bush, if you ask me.
Yes, thank you. It has happened before when we had it in Chibok, and then Buniadi in Yobe, and then the Dabchin. I have had opportunity to be part of the think tank that Mr. President charged the security agencies that they should come up with a solution. And in that incident, what the security operative did, or what the security template that was played out was for the Dabchi. The lesson learned was that schools should be protected using the Nigerian police, the civil defense, and the SSS, that is the secret intelligence, who also could cultivate some intelligence and information before it happened. And we went and we were able to collapse. Some of the schools were collapsed. They were collapsed together. They were merged. And then security provided, particularly schools like those of them that were in Dapchi, and some of it that were in Maiduguri during that Chibok incident. And also the community were brought into the picture of what happened, and they were also reminded of their responsibility to the country as a citizen, to also observe, and whatever that is strange around them, they should quickly alert the security, and that was done. And I think after that we had some respite, we had some stabilization, and of course some of the activities in the school went fine. But I think after that the security agency did not do much. But I think that there are a lot of ways we can come together. There are a lot of ways that we can prefer to ensure that schools are safe wherever they are. If we bring this template by, first of all, you have to include the communities, because those that would come, to precipitate this kind of situation are seen. A lot of people would have crossed them. A lot of people would have known when they were planning. Quite a number would have also seen them preparing, or even coming to cause this act, coming to effect what they plan. And so there are a lot of things we can do, including the communities and including people around. People must watch, must see and say something, because if that is not done, then always there will always be a surprise from these bandits. And so there are very simple ways that will not cost money. People need to be educated. People need to be told that they have a say in their safety, and that people that are noticed not to be members of the community must definitely be reported. And if you do that, then you are likely to have some respite, and then an addition to what the security will do. Otherwise, if we keep quiet this will continue to rear its head.
Okay, thank you very much, DIG Habila. But let's return to Dr. Ona Ehomo. Dr. Ona Ehomo, there is some curiosity about the latest incident of abduction in Kankara in Katsina State. None of us, was a witness, but we can attempt some reconstruction and therefore just attempt also to make sense of what transpired against the previous experiences that we'd had, namely Chibok and Dapchi. In Dapchi, nearly 3 years ago, the terrorists were reported to have come in their pickup trucks with which they used to convey the girls. In Chibok, they also used trucks. But here we are, over 300 pupils reportedly abducted and then conveyed on motorbikes. On motorbikes. Assuming you were to have 3 or 4 of those pupils on one motorbike, I mean, you would need several motorbikes to do this, and the sheer noise from the motorbikes alone, as they were going for the operation and as they were also conveying the students, ought to have triggered some sensitive antenna to say, look, something is playing out. It just looks curious, almost like a movie that you are conveying 300 persons in the night, not in daytime. And they were not going for any road show. What's your reading of what probably happened?
Thank you very much, Honorable Kingsley. Well, it's quite sad that we have very poor security awareness, security knowledge in this part of the world. And, well, let's just go back for a second and look at the scenario you painted. In Chibok, they came with trucks. Some of the trucks broke down. Some of the girls escaped. In Dapchi, none of the girls escaped. All the girls were secured and taken and then returned later, except Leah Sharibu, who is still in captivity. And now in this one, this is a classic. This is an unprecedented terrorist attack. First of all, the world has never seen anything like this in terms of numbers of victims seized, in terms of numbers of abductees. So this is unprecedented. So Nigeria has just entered the infamous World Book of Guinness Record in the wrong direction. Now, secondly, the herding, the movement, the transportation, because it's a logistical issue here. How do you move 300 persons out from a school and on motorbikes? How many motorbikes do you need? How many attackers were there in the first place? So I think I can tell you, like you said, let's try to create a scenario of what happened. Well, what happened here was that it was a well-planned attack. Well, a lot of students are missing, probably in that number, in that magnitude, and they were herded. They went because one of the students who escaped and came back talked about the march into the forest. So they were herded. That is like the way you herd cattle. You just say, go this direction. And so they weren't all really carried in the bikes. Of course, that would be a logistical nightmare. It wouldn't, they wouldn't be able to do that because you remember they have to have enough of a number of attackers to take down the school and then carry each bike, that's have each bike, then carry maybe 2 passengers on. So if you do the math, you see that they needed, at least a couple hundred bikes to do that logistical movement. So I think they use the herding technique. When you fire shots, when you create fear in people, people start behaving like cattle. You just say, move this way, and they will move. And that's what they did. Now, some of the students who were courageous enough were able to dodge. That's how you got the 17 that they say came back, or whatever numbers. But at least there was a student who was interviewed, which I saw specific, because I love case studies for this reason. You can know the stories, you can know what exactly transpired, and you can now read into it whatever scenarios based on your knowledge and experience and what have you. So I think, sir, that we are getting to a level where we've seen that happen in a lot of those states around the Rugu Forest, Zamfara, Katsina, Niger, Kaduna. We've seen these mass abductions, and this is just taking mass abductions to a new level. And I think the fear factor is so much. This shows that there's an urgent need to strengthen soft targets in this country. The government is really not doing enough. The communication is not there. We need to go out there and start showing films and develop protocols that will teach our populations that they are soft targets, but they have strengths of their own. Some of the strengths which DIG Habila was just talking about, vigilance. You have to be vigilant. You have to see what is going on around you. You have to notice unusual stuff around you, not necessarily strangers, even because your own brothers can do harm to you. If they start behaving in unusual ways, then of course you had the issue of the remoteness of that school, which made it a prime target, and so on and so forth. I mean, there are some other things we can talk about them, but that's the thing about the way they move them in terms of logistics. It was a herding method they used. They just kind of herded them and they all marched into the forest. The same way they march people into the forest, even here in the south. When they kidnap people on the highway, they march them for 12 kilometers. So now, please, before I go, Kingsley, this comes to the release I put out a couple of days ago, my association put out, and we said, listen, Governor Masari should also use Makama strategy. Makama is the former commissioner of police in Ogun State when those 4 redeemed pastors were kidnapped. And what he did, he lined up a lot of security forces and they marched into the forest. And they marched in far enough to get them. Now, this is the 5th day of that captivity. So it's getting bad right now because you have to go in fresh pursuit when these things happen. We are too lead-footed and we really need to change our strategies to gain success in these kind of matters.
All right, thank you, Dr. Ehomu. Let's go to Kabiru Adamu. Kabiru, you've just listened to Ehomu and his analysis of what may have transpired in terms of the way and manner that these students were taken away from their school. He talked about a herding method, which of course is more likely to be, because telling us that they use motorbikes to convey over 300 people, that would not be a true story. So now, in your opinion, what do you think that happened? And away from that, considering the fact that these children are now in the bush and that we are hearing a Boko Haram dimension to that. I've also heard in some foreign media that Shekau had actually pleaded with some bandits to begin to liaise with them and work with them. In that situation, do you think that there's any kind of synergy between the bandits and Boko Haram?
Yes, Kirian, let me start with your first question, and to add to what Dr. Ona mentioned. The incident started around 9 p.m. Based on the account by the students that were either rescued or escaped. And so the cover of darkness also helped these attackers. The second thing that also helped them, in addition to what Dr. Ona mentioned, is the fact that they appeared to the students like security personnel. Now, we're not sure if they were wearing uniforms or it was the language they used, but the account of the students that escaped indicated that they thought they were security personnel. They used flashlight to ask them to come back after they had jumped over the defense to escape into the bush. These attackers now use flashlights to bring them back. So all of these factors aided, this huge number that we're talking about. And I agree with Dr. Una that, unfortunately, again, we entered the infamous Guinness Book of Records in terms of number of, victims of kidnapping. My friends across the world have been asking me this question: How is it possible that 500 plus students would be carried away and nothing visible really to indicate how it happened and then why it happened? So to the world, really, this is a huge surprise, and to us security experts, this is of course a huge surprise. Now, the second part of your question, we've always tracked this association between terrorists in the northeast and these bandits in the northwest. Now, there is a lot of nomenclature that is being used to describe these bandits, starting from the word bandits down to the Global Terrorism Index that is using the word Fulani extremist, and then to criminologists who will call them criminals. Now, irrespective of what you use, the fact that they are attacking vulnerable populations means, unfortunately, that we should have, taken this threat more seriously than we're taking it. It's also very important to note the statement by the Minister of Defense when he recommended that these criminals, bandits, or whatever you want to call them, be categorized as terrorists. So clearly, there is that association between the terrorist groups in the Northeast and the Northwest. And then not too long ago, precisely around July or August, the Ministry of Defense released a statement sort of warning that records show that these bandits, this whatever we want to call them, have now weapons that they categorize as terrorist weapons, including rocket propelled grenades, AK-49s, AK-47s, and name them. In fact, in that statement, the Ministry of Defense indicated that they now have the capability to shoot down helicopters. So clearly, we're dealing with non-state actors that are metamorphosizing into a bigger threat. Now, add this to the common factor, and I want to emphasize this point. Dr. Ona has mentioned it, the ungoverned spaces that exist in the north. In this instance, we're talking of the Rugu forest. That forest is cuts across at least 8 local governments in Katsina. So it is unfathomable that knowing that you are dealing with that types of threats across 8 local governments, and yet you left this soft target with, unfortunately, forgive my use of the word, sitting dogs that came and have been taken away by these bad guys. So our threat assessment, our vulnerability assessment, and our risk profiling, unfortunately, has not done us very well in this regard. And like I said earlier on, we do have the Safe School Declaration. This is the time to now start to implement that Safe School Declaration and ensure that all schools are protected. We're not reinventing the wheel. It was done in Pakistan, and in fact, in the US, it was done. The US has this peculiar case of active shooter situations where gunmen, sometimes even students, come into the schools to kill. So what they did, they also introduced the same Safe School initiative to do 3 things basically, and just to conceptualize what AIG has mentioned. One of the conceptualization is to protect the school community. The second one is to protect the community where the school itself exists. And then the third one is to protect vulnerable groups, specific vulnerable groups within the school community. So this is not, we're not reinventing the wheel. It's just for us to start this process as early as possible. And I mean, in terms of procedures, there are a few things that can be done. I'm sure between myself and Dr. Ona and several other security practitioners, we can volunteer really our expertise to assist the Ministry of Education develop protocols for this assessment that I've mentioned, the vulnerability assessment, the risk assessment, and then of course the checklist that schools can use in ensuring protection for both teachers, non-academic staff, school administrators, and more importantly, the students and pupils.
All right, Dr. Kabir Adamu, thank you very much. I mean, it's almost like a century ago now when we went to school, and you didn't have this kind of concern or this kind of anxiety. If your school had a fence, it was a hedge. That's either of a low shrub or very low growth trees. And here we are. In the past, we also felt that the boarding house was the best place for you to be because it offered you the opportunity of mingling with other students and also being disciplined in terms of routines, and also, sometimes you had some bullies anyway who were your seniors. But it's a new ball game now. DIG Habila, should we now take it as a new normal that our schools are vulnerable, more particularly in the northern parts of the country, and the implication that would have on school enrollment, and therefore an inability to make a dent on out of school children whose population keeps rising?
We must accept the fact that these criminals have grown. Most of them are more down and picked up. They also have others coming up. So there must be a robust and a comprehensive plan to deal with that situation. And like I said, I've been part of it, and I remember that Mr. President gave that order when we had the DAPCHI, and Mr. President visited himself and met me there. And also he was briefed, and what I'm saying here is that we need to accept the fact that these people could spring a surprise. And that's why I'm saying it's most unheard of that this kind of personality that would come for this kind of 300 students, you know, and pick them up, whatever means of transportation, whatever means they must have used to come. I'm sure that a lot of people saw some of these things, and they must have looked very, very strange in their face. But I agree with you also that there must have been some camouflaging that did not put them out there as criminals. They must have looked like someone else, particularly the security agencies. And that's why they were able to even access that place. And a lot of the students who also jumped out, and they were encouraged to come back. That means that there was something they did that did not put it out there that they were bandits. And you know that in Nigeria, most of the incidences like this by bandits are, you know, kidnapped for ransom. And we will not be wrong to say that these are people that want to raise funds, you know, for other criminal elements like the Boko Haram and others, to perpetrate their evil activities. And so what we need to do is we must grow from most communities where we have this incident, people who should be able to know when to observe and what to do. It is very, very clear that a lot of people would have seen them, but because these people have not been fully informed as to exactly what to do, they may have run or they may have kept quiet. And so we need to cultivate communities in areas where we know that is prone to attack, so that these people also will help, because it's just an attempt to call if there are communication means. And then we also need to make sure that we provide this security to these communities. You can imagine Kankara, schools in Bokuyum, and schools in Talata Mafara, and other schools around there. You know, there's a forest that span from Bindungwari coming into Niger and spread into that area, very thick bush. And I think the government itself had an opportunity to try to put the forest guard. There are people, I think, that are forest guard, but I don't know what exactly they are doing now. But I think we can resuscitate that and make sure that there are forest guards planted in some of the areas where bandits that intend to come and cause this havoc are likely to use those routes, so that we can alert security agencies, and I think that we can reverse it, because what happened in Dapchi, what happened in Chibok, and what happened in Buniyadi, there were actions, and I can say now that at least we have some respite. And so I think we need to wake up to plant some communities must collaborate with the security agencies, and then deliberately these things, physical security should be put in some of the schools, so that in the event of this, there could be some reaction.
All right.
Kieran, I'm just wondering, I mean, it's curious. Well, we don't, realistically, you can't police every inch or every foot of a school premises, where you have pupils, where you have teachers.
No.
And we have hundreds of thousands of schools around the country.
Yeah, but one aspect of this conversation could be the issue of intelligence gathering mechanism of our security operatives. And I want to bring in Dr. Ihomu here. What do you make of our level of intelligence gathering mechanism? Because from this conversation, we've heard that it could have been possible to detect, you know, these mass movement, right, you know, before they even got to the school, as the case may be. And we are wondering why, if there is no such intelligence gathering, there's no way one could have known or determined that such movement was in place. So is there any way to improve in intelligence gathering with respect to, issues of this nature, knowing full well that in that part of the country that we have had the issues of banditry, Boko Haram insurgency, and what have you?
Thank you very much, Mr. Kieran. Well, intelligence is key to solving the problem of, well, I think I prefer to call it Northwest terrorism than banditry, because when you call it banditry, you are giving it a label that kind of makes it acceptable. It's not acceptable. These guys are just as evil as Boko Haram, and perhaps even more evil, because they are affecting a larger area, that whole Rugu forest and the surrounding states that DIG Habila was just referring to, that thick forest from Building Gwari Trough and around. And so, and then of course all the way to Sokoto and Kebbi states too, they are getting attacked severely by the bandits. But having said that, the question is about intelligence. Well, you see, intelligence, you have three elements or three phases of intelligence. You have the gathering phase, you have the analysis phase, and you have the utilization, if you may, phase, decision-making phase. Now, the gathering phase, that is where we could use a lot of community assets. We must use community assets. There's no two ways about it. People, like DIG said, people are out there in the communities. When they see certain things that are out of order, they must be able to report to somebody. Almost every Nigerian now has a phone, and thank you, Mr. Honorable Kingsley, for saying that they should not shut down people's phones, because there are people in rural areas who don't have the NIMSI or NIN, and if you shut them down, then of course they will not be able to give you this intelligence we are looking for now. But people have phones, and we can give certain short codes to people to dial in. Now, a lot of these people, they understand the local language. You can reach them in their language, which is what we are saying about security awareness training, going out, train these communities, particularly these hard-hit communities that are in this northwest area that have borne the brunt of these terrorist attacks. Train them in what to observe, how to report, communication. I am happy that Kabir is on this show. He's a risk communication expert. In communication of the risk to the authorities, such that they will first get that information, because somebody must be out there. Since we don't have technical means of gathering intelligence, then let's use human means. Let's use the people that we have, but retool them, because you must sensitize them. You must give them a feel that gathering this information and providing it to the authorities is for their own good. So there must be that community buy-in. Now, when you have that, it goes to the next stage, where you have like a fusion center, where all this information will come in, and you have all the military guys like Mr. Joshak and his guys, where they do the analysis. Well, this is supposed to be headed up by the local intelligence agency, that is DSS. They should do this analysis, and then other intelligence arms within all the services, including even the Nigeria Police Force, which should revive, that is intelligence school in Enugu, but that's another story. Now, so you have to have that fusion going in there, and then to have response, that's to have the decisions made and transmitted to whichever executive, could be a police commissioner, an AIG, a DIG, or to a military commander, who will make the decision of what needs to happen in terms of a strike against the hostiles, that is the adversaries, the attackers, like Mr. Kabir called them. So you see, what I'm trying to say is you must look at all phases of intelligence, because often we think only about the gathering. But if you gather this intelligence and it's not, first of all, you have to solicit it. You have to go out into the community and say, look, we want this kind of information, and you must empower them and let them know that this is going to be useful to the government and for their own good. And then you must now analyze it, and then of course certainly capitalize on it. That is, use the intelligence. Because if you don't use it, nobody, they won't trust you to give you any more information in future.
Right, Dr. Ona Ekom would like to thank you very much for your analysis. We have, of course, two topics to discuss today, this being one of them, but particularly also because it is early days in the latest incident of abduction, we will, of course, have to return to this subject matter at some point. So, Dr. Ona Ekom, joining us from our Lagos Network Center, I would like to appreciate you for being part of our discussion this morning. We also would like to thank Dr. Kabir Adamu. Dr. Kabir Adamu, I know you're warming up. Of course, there will be many more opportunities, God willing, for us to return to this particular subject matter. You've always talked about the 25 or 7 odd security and intelligence agencies, what happened on this occasion. There will be that opportunity for a post-mortem analysis. Thank you very much, Dr. Kabir Adamu. You joined us via Zoom. And here at our studios, our deep thanks to DIG, that's retired Deputy Inspector General of Police in charge of operations, Joshua Habila. Thanks a lot for your insight. We hope you will oblige us when next we return to this subject matter.
Thank you.
Now, there were a number of tweets that came in. We'd like to appreciate the tweets. A number of them, of course, were dealing with operational issues and recommendations. Of course, now that the forces out there are still trying to comb the forest and get the pupils back alive, we wouldn't seek to jeopardize that. But regardless,
we thank you for staying with us on the show up to this moment. Now, the National Population Commission, NPC, says Nigeria is on the path of delivering a population census that will stand the test of time as the Commission commences its nationwide enumeration area demarcation exercise. Joining us now is Alhaji Nasir Isa Kwara, is the Chairman, National Population Commission. So we thank you for being with us here this morning.
Thank you very much. Good morning, Nigeria.
All right. Also joining this conversation is Prince Joseph Ogunshino. He is Director in charge of cartography at the Population Commission. Prince Ogunshino, delighted to have you with us on the program.
Thank you very much. Good morning, Nigerians.
Okay. Gentlemen, you're welcome to the program. Well, we are talking about another census this time around. And of course, we know what happens when it is time for census, demarcation and other processes that we'll have to pass through before we get we've got to get into the counting proper. We've had a lot of issues when it comes to census in this country, starting from the very beginning. And many Nigerians are looking forward not to, begin to experience such situations that we had in the past. Now, give us an idea of what NPC has put in place, that will, of course, separate the process now from the process we had in the past that, of course, brought in some discrepancies and disbelief in the actual result of the census.
Okay, thank you very much. The National Population Commission has introduced new technologies. We're using ICT in the process of this enumeration area demarcation. We have developed an in-house software that we use. Instead of using paper and ink, we use just a tablet, and our demarcators go around, starting from local government levels. We go to ward levels, we go to village areas, numbering houses, demarcating the areas where the enumerators can handle the exercise within the time allotted to them during the census. So we have been doing this, I think, for the past 3-4 years, and we're doing it in phases, and with each phase we improve on what we do. And like I just said, now we don't use ink and paper, we use tablets, and within a very short time we're able to demarcate areas with accuracy. And there are satellite imageries for everyone to see for himself the area demarcated, and that becomes the frame even when we're doing census or when we're doing surveys or when we're doing birth registration. Becomes the national frame for us.
Well, I was just wondering, Mr. Chairman, what has been your experience as the chair of the Population Commission? I mean, of course, you talked about the demarcation exercise, but overall, what has been your experience and what is your vision? I'm asking this question against the background of what we all know, that the last national population census we had was in 2006, and this is 14 years later.
Okay, yes, thank you very much. Since we had the last census, it's now 15 years, and let's say we're late by about 5 years. We should have had the census about 5 years ago. Somehow, it is not for Population Commission to say, look, I'll go ahead and do census unless you get the nod of the political head in the country. So, all along, I think the nod has not been quite forthcoming, but we're making fresh moves to get the approval of Mr. President to make a proclamation that we're going to conduct a census in the country. My vision is actually to position the National Population Commission in such a way that it will deliver on its mandate without any hitches. In the past, we have sort of suffered neglect, sort of. Not much attention is paid to Population Commission, not much funding is being given to them. But these days, we've met representation at the highest quarters, and we thank God Mr. President has approved enough funding at least for us to finish this enumeration demarcation exercise. And we're hoping that we'll take off from there after the exercise. We hope to finish it second quarter next year by the grace of God.
All right, Prince Ogunshino, talk about the capacity of NPC staff, and let us know what the plans are with respect to how you intend to carry out this operation, knowing full well that it's going to be a nationwide operation. All right, it's not anything very easy, to accomplish. Otherwise, we don't have lost 5 years. We would have had this 5 years ago, but not because of the some encumbrances and of course the complexity of organizing a census that may have made it difficult for us to have it 5 years ago. And also considering the fact that we're not in a country where we have proper data, where you can depend on data, especially like death rate, birth rates, and what have you, to be able to determine population. We don't have such records at the moment. Now, how does the NPC intend to cope, assuming you're not going to the operation proper?
Well, we in the commission, we have the capacity. We are just waiting for the government to say that this is the year we'll do census. But in the interim, government has given us enough fund to start the preparation, which is enumeration area demarcation. And just like what my honorable chairman just said, we are finishing the whole country between now and second quarter next year, that is around June. And over the year, because of this, we're supposed to have done census maybe about 3, 4, 5 years ago. But along the line, it's still a blessing in disguise because we have built a lot of capacity. Just now, we have concluded the training of trainers concerning the enumeration area demarcation. Ongoing in the state right now is the training of field functionaries. And even in between, we've been doing a lot of births and deaths registration. We have automated all our vital registration and statistics system. So we are doing a lot in the commission. We have the capacity. We are ready. It's just to get the nod from the government. Thank you.
So, Prince Ogushino, a couple of years ago on Good Morning Nigeria, we had some officials from the Population Commission discussing the same issue around EAD, that's the enumeration area demarcation, as a prelude to a full-blown population census. And the question then arises, how long does it take to conclude EAD? EAD is not a full census on its own, it's just demarcating areas. And here we are, 2 years or more later, we're still talking about EAD. What's happening?
Yeah, well, thank you. You know, we are here with a good and better news now, because the last time that I was part of the team that came here that time, you know, government was just giving us money, you know, in a small, the way we can, not enough. But now we have been given enough money to complete enumeration area demarcation. So, because that time we could only do a phase, maybe in a year, we were able to just do a phase, which maybe 37 local government. But presently, we have segmented or divided the remaining 514 local governments into about 5 phases, but we have the fund to just run from the beginning to the end. So the issue now is that the time to complete now is just between 6 and 9 months, which by God's grace, between June and August next year, we are done with enumeration area demarcation. Then it remains census proper, which we are just waiting for government to say, go to the field and count the people.
It looks curious, Kieran, isn't it? Yeah. That at the time we had the last national population census, 2006, the security situation in the country wasn't exactly the same as we are seeing now. In fact, radically different from what we are seeing today. So while you are doing your EAD and preparing for a census, I'm just wondering how you're going to, I don't know, cover the country, northeast and now northwest, where you are seeing all kinds of things. Is that likely to be a hindrance, or you might also use your satellite mapping for advantage, Chairman?
Thank you very much, Kingsley. I think, let me just expatiate on what he explained. The enumeration area demarcation is a capital intensive project requiring a lot of funding. So in the past, the funding was not forthcoming as expected. But now government has come to support us completely, and that's why the pace is increasing, and we're hoping that in the next 6 months we'll be able to accomplish the task of demarcating the entire 704 local governments. Well, the security situation is actually a source of concern for, in fact, every Nigerian. But what we're doing as a strategy now is to go to those areas that are safe to demarcate. So we're selecting those areas, isolating them, and demarcating them. We are also liaising with our security agents. Anytime we're getting to those areas, we normally write formally to inform them. We will be going to their formations, and they should try and provide security. The state governments too, we solicit their support to provide logistics as well as security, and enlighten public too about our activities. Now, when we go to the volatile areas, I think we will engage the top level officials of security to get their buy-in, so that they can support us wherever our functionaries are, to make sure we carry out the exercise successfully.
When you complain, or rather indicate that the commission until now was, as it were, under-resourced, I was just wondering, does the National Assembly the House of Reps and or Senate, do they have committees on population census? And if they do, the commission on its own make its own pitch for better funding and therefore understanding from the lawmakers, and so that you get better appropriation, and all the complaints previously, as you said, would not have arisen in the first instance. Do you have the understanding or appreciation of members of the National Assembly as to the significance of the work you are supposed to do?
Yes, we have committees on population and national identity. We are very good with the members of the committee, and we carry them along whatever we do. I guess it's just, let me say, paucity of fund. That's why government could not support then. But now, we've made strong cases for them to support us, and they will carry everybody along, including the National Assembly members, to make sure we get the support of government to carry out this very important exercise. Data is very, very important. Every part of the world, data is the key thing. Without data, you can't make meaningful planning. So Nigeria must not be left behind. It's good to have our acts right and get data and plan very well for the development of this country.
Are you going to be working in synergy, with other agencies, that are also into data collection? Because we have a lot of data collection agencies in this country who have also operated in this very society. Same society that you're going to carry out its a census. So is there any collaboration between you and NIMS, for instance, and banks, NIMS, even operators of GSM and all of that? Should there be a kind of a coordination, because you are still having all this data on us, Nigerians? I mean, we just have one set of Nigerians, in this country. So is there going to be any kind of collaboration? Are you going all out, on your own, to do this all alone as MPC?
Okay, thank you very much. I just assumed office in the past one month, and since my assumption of office, I've actually drawn my program for interfacing with all these data generating agencies and data users as well. So not quite long ago, I met with Mr. for ICT and digital economy in collaboration with the DG of NMC and NITDA. They are going to support us where technology is concerned. I met with the Statistician General, and I solicited his support from top level to the functionaries. We need to collaborate. We are not really competing. We are supposed to be collaborating to assist the country with data for them and for the policymakers to plan very well. So I intend to extend this to many others too as this go by.
Well, Prince Ogunshino, yes, I know, of course, you are in charge of cartography, but of course, you should attend your management meeting where a number of these issues have been discussed. Namely, the other very critical functions of the Population Commission, registration of birth and death. Again, on Good Morning Nigeria, some while back, we had a conversation around the credibility of data, particularly for passages, that's to say for deaths. Because there are some communities in the country where unfortunately people die and no autopsy is performed and burials just take place. And there's no reporting, and yet you are supposed to have your officials in local government areas to take this data into their records. But in the number of villages. We understand that this goes on regularly. And one of the key points that was identified was insufficient interface by way of communication to those communities on the necessity of reporting whatever occurrence, birth or death in their localities. What has changed or what is still ongoing?
Yeah, the commission, we are trying our best when it comes to the issue of vital registrations. We have registration centers in all the local governments. We have in the communities all the health facilities, you know, maybe general hospitals, then even the palaces of obas in the communities, and we have people that gives us information, and at the same time we capture the data. But the beauty of the whole thing is that it's in the past it used to be the analog way, but right now we have automated the whole processes. So Nigeria will have a better, you know, delivery from us when it comes to vital sciences. Yes, sometimes people find it difficult to report the issues of death, maybe because of the circumstances, but we will try our best to, you know, do better. But with the automation, and so that the processes is simpler and be faster this time around. So
what's the automation about here?
Before now, your staff on ground in local government areas across the nation, you know, have to get these records because they may not actually depend on persons to give them information. If they're on ground, I mean, I don't know the spread anyway, but if they're on ground in council areas in this country, they should be able to have their own record of deaths and births, as Kinsley has asked earlier on.
We are in every local government, all the 774 local governments headquarters, the secretariat of the 774 local government. Then we are in all the general hospitals and the health facilities in the whole country. So the issue is that, as I've said, you know, the reporting processes between what happened to the people and us is just the little something, but we are trying our best to improve on the registration.
Okay, well, thank you, Prince Ogunshino. Let's return to the chairman, Alhaji Kwara. Well, still on the issue of funding, I know that parasitas will never tire of asking for more funds. Who are ordinarily supposed to be the funders of the Population Commission? Is it solely a federal government responsibility, considering that the end product of your activities are available, you know, to all and sundry?
Thank you very much. I just want to help out more and to be more frank with you on the issue of birth registration and death registration. It is easier to register births, and the performance of National Population Commission is a lot better when it comes to birth registration. But death registration, like you said, the circumstance of death is not something you would want to celebrate or report. Some are so distressed that they will not even want to provide the information. So to get even stakeholders to provide that information, I think I was discussing strategy with one of the ministers. He said maybe we should get some small stipend that we can give to, for instance, in the case of a church, when you are doing burial, the church officiates. In the case of Muslims, imams officiate. So maybe if you can get some token to be given to those officials so they can be providing information, that will be helpful, but the cost is going to be heavy because Nigeria is very large. So those are things that we're still tinkering with, maybe to approach government with this proposal. If we want to really get it right, it will even lessen the cost of doing census from one period to another if we're very, very good with civic registration. Then the issue of funding, yes, population matters are essentially in the exclusive list of the federal government. They fund the activities of National Population Commission. But like you said, data is used by all and sundry, but we expect, like we normally get from international community, the international donor agencies, some private organizations, and even state and local government, they should provide support. They should support. The responsibility falls squarely on the federal government, but I think the others of national agency government should also provide support to National Population Commission to accomplish its mandate.
Are you soliciting for this support, or just believing that they are on their own will willingly give you support? Are you soliciting for any support from these quarters you mentioned now?
In the case of state governments, any time we're carrying out any exercise in a state, we do a formal letter to the governor soliciting support in essentially the area of publicity and the area of logistics and security for our operatives. The international donor agencies are always there to support us, technically as well as financially.
Yeah, but you know, we're a big country, so Kieran, we'll be expecting donor support before we count our people and know how many we are. Chairman, thanks. Prince Ogunshino, you say realistically by the end of second quarter of 2021 you'll be through with the EAD, that's the enumeration area demarcation. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay, so the point has also been made that you are awaiting the signaling and proclamation from the President of the Federal Republic.
Yes.
But realistically, when will the nation be ready or can be ready for a national population census?
Well, I think if we are able to finish the enumeration area demarcation by June, July next year, the 6 months after, or because the census preparation will start immediately, and you know, all things being equal, we should be able to have census maybe late next year or first quarter of 2022.
It must be the dry season, by the way.
Yes.
As always been in the past, the dry season.
Yes.
Okay.
All right.
Okay.
I think we're done with this conversation. We'd like to appreciate both of you for being here this morning to, of course, clear the air and, of course, to give us information on how the MPC plans to, you know, take Nigeria to the next level in terms of population census. So we have to appreciate you once again, Alhaji Nasir Isa Kwara, Chairman, National Population Commission. We thank you for coming.
Thanks for having me.
Of course, Prince Joseph Ogunshino, Director Cartography. It's been a pleasure talking to you this morning.
Thank you for having me.
All right.
All right. Just before we close, we're going to take sports now.